How's things going?
It's good. Yeah.
Good.
Good.
I just got back from California.
How's that?
Excellent. My up there and her husband and my 2-year-old.
We'll call to order the Planning Commission meeting. Mr. Lakers, you determine a quorum.
Mr. Kroll. Mr. Miller.
Here.
Ms. Sharp Robinson.
Here.
Ms. Simpkins.
Here.
Mr. Waltz, absent. Mr. Workman.
Here.
Ms. Secretary Link is here. Vice Chair Foster.
Here.
Chair Rice.
Here.
We have a quorum.
And you have the agenda in front of you. Looking for approval.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second for approval of agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those likewise. And the consent agenda consists of July 10th and July 17th and August 21st meeting minutes.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed likewise. And then we move into public hearings. So the first public hearing is a request by James Crenshaw for a special use permit to allow a short-term tourist rental using the existing residential structure on property owned by James D. Crenshaw and Eric C. Smith. The property is located at 2836 Wrights Way.
Good evening.
Yes, Ms. Wright.
All right. First, we have up for you the vicinity map showing the location of the site. You'll see on the left where the blue star is, that is the where Wrights Way is located, which is right outside the outskirts of town of Blacksburg off of Harding Road. On the right, we have a zoomed in version of the same map that shows a little bit better about what the distance is from the town of Blacksburg lines. On the left, we have the aerial map showing the location in the yellow square. And on the right, we have the area zoning map, which shows that the entire area is residential R2. Some background information on this application is that the applicant proposes to use this property as a short-term tourist rental for no more than 4 consecutive days and 20 days a month for up to 8 occupants. The property is zoned R2, which requires a special use permit with the supplemental regulations to mitigate impacts for short-term rentals. The zoning ordinance definition of short-term rental is a single-family dwelling or portion thereof located on an individual lot that is rented for compensation to short-term transient guests. The operator does not live on the same parcel or an adjacent property. Some of the special use permit supplemental regulations for short-term tourist rentals include that the number of occupants will be determined by the septic permit. Parking is prohibited in or along all rights-of-ways and in yards. Property boundaries must be clearly marked. No evidence of short-term rentals on the outside. No signs identifying the property as a short-term rental. It must meet all requirements in the Virginia State Fire Prevention Code. They must provide property management plan mitigating impacts on adjacent properties. They must post an emergency evacuation plan for both the dwelling and the neighborhood. And they must post a copy of the Montgomery County Noise Ordinance. They must provide a map that shows connection to local phone services, and all outdoor burning, if any, is to be in compliance with county code. On the left, we have a floor plan showing the dwelling and its 4 bedrooms, sitting area, and all the amenities that are in the house. On the right, we have a parking diagram, which shows that the parking is in their driveway, and there are 4 spots available, and the number 3 and 4 will be carved out in a parking area on the lot. On the left, we have a photo showing Harding Road going toward Blacksburg. And on the right, we have a photo of the Harding Road headed away from Blacksburg. And you can see the paved entrance there. On the left, this is Wrights Way looking toward, away from Harding as you're going up the way. It is paved until you get to a certain point. On the right is Wrights Way headed toward Harding Road, the opposite direction. This property is the adjacent property that also shares the driveway with the site. This shows the kind of natural border that is provided between the property and the adjacent property owner. On the left is the existing vegetation which buffers the site from the adjacent property owner to the west. And on the right is the eastern portion of the property with the view from the backyard. Impacts that were identified are that Wright's Way is a private gravel road with a 30-foot right-of-way. The driveway is shared with the adjacent property owner, which was shown in those photos. Traffic impacts will remain minimal, resulting in no greater intensity in traffic than the current impact as a residence. Parking will be made available for 4 vehicles maximum and will only be allowed in the driveway. VDOT took no exception to approval of the special use permit. The property is not located in a FEMA flood hazard area. The property is served by private well and private septic system. The on-site soil evaluator and professional engineer report states that the septic system is safe, adequate, and proper for a 4-bedroom dwelling, limiting occupancy from 8 to 10 guests, no more than 4 consecutive days, limited to 20 days per month. The applicant anticipates the official VDH approval to be given by next week. The lot has natural buffers from the closest residences with a vast view of the mountains to the northeast. Fire safety will be addressed during the zoning and building permitting processes. Gatherings and parties will not be allowed, and it is in the contract. Dwelling will be equipped with an outdoor camera for security. Dogs will be allowed but required to be kept on a leash and cleaned up after. The property will be managed by Blue Ridge Escapes, which will do the following: coordinate housekeeping, urgent repairs, lawn care, and extermination services. And they will respond to adjacent property owner concerns. All immediate neighbors will be provided with their contact information. The comprehensive plan identifies the area as residential transition, which typically includes a stable, low-density residential neighborhoods in close proximity to municipalities. Areas include undeveloped land that has been previously zoned for residential development, and the residential transition areas are usually limited with public sewer and water service. Comprehensive plan has identified these 3 goals that are being met by this application, including planning and land use, cultural resources, and economic resources. Staff analysis shows that the proposed use does meet regulations outlined in the supplemental regulations. The proposed use remains residential with no more impacts than a full-time residence, comparable to traditional occupancy. The applicant is working with VDH towards approval for use. VDOT takes no exception, and the town of Blacksburg had no concerns. They were required to be notified because the site was within a half a mile of their jurisdiction. Staff recommends approval of the request with the following conditions. One of them has been amended since your packet went out last week, and that's the first one. Occupancy shall be limited to 8 occupants. What was amended or added was the suggestion from the OSE report, which was no more than 4 consecutive days, limited to 20 days per month, unless otherwise specified by the VDH conditional use permit for the 4-bedroom dwelling. The property shall be registered with the Commissioner of Revenue's Office for meals and occupancy taxes. Any applicable permits must be obtained from the building department, and all requirements in Montgomery County Code for short-term tourist rentals shall be met prior to the issuance of the zoning permit. All adjacent property owners were notified in accordance with Montgomery County and State Code. Public hearing signs were placed on the property at the site, in addition to the intersection at Harding Road, since it is a private road. All legal ads have been run accordingly in the News Messenger. Staff has received no comments from the public, but additional comments may be received during the public hearing. If you have any questions for me, I will be glad to take those. And the applicant is also here if you have any questions for him.
I I have a question about the 4 consecutive days. Can you explain that again? Is that something that the applicant requested or something that the health department's requested?
So the health department has received an application for a conditional use permit, but that is generated by the OSE report from the professional engineer and the on-site soil evaluator. That is their recommendation and what they applied for. I don't know if that was initiated by the on-site soil evaluator or the applicant. Maybe they can clarify that when they speak.
Okay. Because I'm wondering, is that based on 8 people there, or if there's 4, could they 4 be there for 6 days consecutive? I mean, it's a little bit.
Septic systems are generally approved occupancy-wise based on the calculation of 2 people per bedroom, and the place does have 4 bedrooms.
Right.
So this is their way of ensuring that that the septic system will support those and that number of occupants.
All right, thank you, Ms. Wright.
You're welcome.
Any further questions for Ms. Wright? Thank you very much. Would the applicant like to come forward?
Hello. Thanks for having me. My name is James Crenshaw.
Okay. Did you want to add anything further to the presentation from Ms. Wright, or would you like to?
One, I want to say thank you to Kim for putting that together. It was very thorough. And she's
Okay.
been very helpful and responsive to the process. We're excited about having this property and visiting town and bringing our families here to come back. We were both alumni to the university and go to football games. And we applied for this permit to do it above board and go along with all the process. So any questions you guys have, I'd be happy to answer.
Can you spread any additional light on the 4 consecutive days? Is that something that the health department has recommended, or something that you've recommended?
That was when the soil evaluator came, they recommended that based on the septic system. And so she spoke to it, but the 2 people per bedroom
Okay.
gets to 8 people in the space.
Okay. Any further questions for the applicant? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And so I open the floor for a public hearing, for a public address. Anybody that would like to speak to this conditional use permit? Oh, let's see, I've got a sign-up sheet. James and Eric. Did Eric Smith want to speak? Okay, thank you. Anyone else would like to speak to this special use permit? Seeing none, we will close the public address portion and open up to the commission. I'm still a little concerned about the 4 consecutive days. If they were to rent it to 3 people, could 3 people stay for a week? That's, it seems like there's a lot of confusion there.
Right, so this is based on it's basically a health department requirement. So because it's a state requirement in their conditional use permit, we could not override that. I do not know if there's flexibility because, like I said, this is attached to their soils report that goes to the health department, and then the health department will base that conditional use permit on that septic report.
And so
it's not our requirement. It's based on the septic and making sure the septic's got capacity.
So this was an existing house that had a septic system. So
Correct.
I'm assuming that part of the special use permit, we as a requirement, we've told them they have to get approval from the health department.
Anytime there is a change in use and expansion, anything like that, and it's on septic system, we do require documentation from Virginia Department of Health that the septic system is adequate for what they are proposing.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you very much.
you're welcome.
Any comments, concerns, questions, or motion? with the conditions?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second for approval of the special use permit with the conditions. And Mr. Lincoln,
Mr. Kroll,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Sharp Robinson. Yes. Ms. Simpkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Workman,
Yes.
Secretary votes yes, Vice Chair Foster,
Yes.
Chair Rice.
yes. We'll move into the second public hearing. It's a request by Jason and Nikki Cowan for a special use permit to allow a commercial kennel on property located at 4342 Quince Road. The property is further identified as tax map 131-A76. It's 49.639 acres, zone agricultural A1 in the Reiner Magisterial District. The property currently lies in the area designated as rural in the 2025 Comprehensive Plan. Jude?
Thank you.
Mr. Cochran, please.
So we'll start out with the vicinity maps. Here you can see the vicinity map on the left showing a blown out view of the county. You can see the blue star towards the southern portion of the county. Again, to the right, you have a zoomed in view of the property right outside of Pilot. Here you can see an aerial map as well as the zoning map. You can see in the left that the aerial shows that the property is largely pasture with some wooded area. And then the picture to the right showing the majority of the properties in that area being zoned A1. Some background. So the request is to allow a 2-story commercial kennel with an upper floor serving as living quarters for employees. The applicant requests the ability to breed, house, and train dogs owned by themselves. The A1 zoning district requires a special use permit with use limitations for commercial kennels. The definition of a commercial kennel is an establishment for keeping, training, breeding, handling, selling, training at the beginning of there, treating or boarding dogs, cats, or other household pets as a business, and that does not include grooming. For A1, the use limitations for commercial kennels, no principal or accessory use or structure shall be within 500 feet of an existing dwelling other than the owner's dwelling, nor within 300 feet of any adjacent property. The proposal has, as shown, meets the use limitations within the kennel, being approximately 350 feet from the nearest property line and 700 linear feet from the nearest adjacent dwelling. Setback distances for the kennel will be verified during the site plan review prior to a zoning permit being issued. Here you can see the approximate location of the proposed dwelling / kennel on the property. You can see that it's centered as much as possible within the parcel. Here you can see a rendering of the proposed structure. You can see the rendering being house-like with upstairs being the residence. And you can see the floor plan below the picture of the house. And then to the right, you have the proposed kennel layout. The bottom right would be the kennel, and then fenced runs surrounding it with a porch lean-to behind the kennel / residence. Here you can see the entrance to Quince Road and the intersection of Quince and Pilot, the left looking towards Christiansburg, the right looking towards Floyd County. The picture to the left, you can see the entrance to the property, and the picture to the right shows the subject property and their primary residence. And that picture also shows the hilly terrain of the property. Again, this is just some more photos of the topography showing the rolling hills, the picture to the left, as well as the picture to the right. And I believe the picture to the right shows the nearest adjacent dwelling, let's see, back in this area. The proposed site is somewhere right behind this tree. And you can see that it's on one of the higher points of the property, being right around here. So going into impacts, traffic, infrastructure, and environmental. Traffic impacts will remain minimal as proposed, resulting in no greater intensity in traffic than the current residents. VDOT took no exception to the approval of the special use permit. The dwelling is accessed via Quince Road, which is a private road off of Pilot Road. The subject's property access goes through a 12-foot right-of-way on adjacent property not owned by the Cohens. The subject property does not have any public road frontage. A new standalone private well and septic system will be required, and it will be required to be approved by VDH. The lot has undulated terrain, with the proposed kennel site being atop one of the higher points of the property. The lot does offer some natural vegetative buffers from adjacent properties. The new structure's driveway access will connect to the existing driveway on the property. Impacts regarding noise, safety, and security. Agricultural operations currently take place on site with livestock dogs. The applicant does not typically allow customers to visit the property and instead meets customers at public places for the transfer of the dogs. The entire perimeter of the property is fenced, with some internal areas fenced as well. Employees who care for the dogs will reside on the property and can address any noise, safety, and security issues that may arise. The adjacent 81-acre property to the west of the outlying parcel is within the AFD district designated as Reiner Little River. Impacts, we reached out to the Montgomery County Animal Care and Adoption Center. The director of the Animal Care and Adoption Center stated, "The Animal Care and Adoption Center works very hard to find homes for all dogs in our care, which many are purebred dogs. We hope that any breeding facility based in our jurisdiction would take measures to ensure that their animals, once purchased, would not eventually contribute to the homelessness of animal population." Moving into the comprehensive plan, the area is designated as rural. Rural are areas where agricultural and rural residential uses are predominant. It should be preserved and stabilized. Areas include low-density residential subdivisions and active agriculture on secondary agricultural land soils, generally not served by public utilities. Moving into the comprehensive plan again, new non-agriculturally based industrial and commercial uses will generally be discouraged in rural areas unless the use is compatible in scale and intensity with agricultural and rural residential uses and poses no threat to health, safety, and welfare. Entrepreneurial economy encourage entrepreneurship and small business startups by county residents, including industrial, commercial, tourism-based, recreational, and agricultural enterprises. So analysis, the proposed use complies with use limitations and the A1 regulations. The principal land use remains primarily residential, with accessory uses being agriculture and the proposed commercial kennel. Little to no additional traffic will be created to and from the site. The applicant will be required to get VDH approval prior to the structure construction. VDOT takes no exception to the proposal, and further review will take place after the site plan and zoning permit application are submitted to staff. Staff recommendation. Staff recommends approval of the request for a special use permit to allow a commercial kennel at 4342 Quince Road with the following conditions. The site shall be developed in general conformance with the concept plan submitted as part of the special use permit application dated July 22nd, 2024. A basic site plan addressing zoning conformance with the required setbacks, parking, and other requirements shall be approved prior to issuance of any county permits. Kennel operations shall be limited to breeding, raising, training, and the selling of dogs and/or puppies owned by the property owner. No more than 25 dogs, excluding dogs under the age of 6 months, shall be housed on the property at any given time. No signs advertising the commercial kennel shall be placed on the property or on Quince Road or Pilot Road. The keeping of dogs shall comply with all applicable regulations within Montgomery County Code Chapter 3, Animals. Any lighting provided for the commercial kennel shall comply with dark skies friendly standards. The adjoining property owners were notified in accordance with the Montgomery County Code. Public hearing signs are placed on the property and at the intersection of Pilot Road and Quince Road. Legal ads are run in the News Messenger. Staff has received multiple comments from the public which have been provided. Additional comments may be received during the public hearing. Are there any questions for staff?
Any questions from the commission?
Mr. Chairman, yeah, I have a question, I guess, for clarification. Jude, could you go back to the one of your earlier slides where it was showing the requirements that listed the setbacks?
Yes.
there. So I guess what I would like to have clarified, the setbacks from this particular provision, is that specific to the kennel structure? Based on the application, it appears that the dogs will be trained or outdoors at some point outside of the actual kennel structure, which seems to be part of the accessory use of the property. So my question and clarification would be, do those setback requirements apply just to the building or to the areas where the dogs are allowed to be outdoors and trained? And I did note in your presentation that there are some intermediate fences, so in addition to the perimeter fence, but could you address that, please?
Yeah, and I believe the applicant can speak to that a little bit as well, but the structure itself, as well as any, I guess, pen or run areas where the dogs will be kept, primarily will have to meet that requirement. My understanding from speaking with the applicant, they do actively use some of the breeding dogs on site as active livestock dogs, so they will be anticipated to be elsewhere on the property. Yeah.
Animals are outside generally on the site.
So it's generally just going to be for that principal structure and where they're kept. So that 300 feet would not apply for when they're elsewhere on the property. Does that make sense?
Okay, so the 300 feet does not apply
For the setbacks,
to
yeah.
anything other than the actual structure, not the use.
Correct.
Well, other accessory uses could include a lot of kennels, especially if they're breeders, they might have a separate pen for the puppies. Those could not be located within that setback. But as far as training, when they have the dogs out working livestock, the dog itself would be allowed within those setbacks because they would be working the livestock at that time. So it would be just like if you had a farm and you had a livestock dog, that dog would be allowed on the property with the livestock.
I
That's
understand.
how they conduct their training, so.
Yeah, but in that scenario, they're not applying for a special use permit either. So that's
This
why
is
I
true.
wanted to clarify, this setback does or does not apply to when the animals are.
Right, and they
running,
would
right?
have to abide by any of the conditions in Chapter 3, and that deals with like leashing if they're off property, all of that good stuff.
Yeah, dogs running at large and things like that.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you go back to the slide where it shows where the proposed building would be and how close that is to their neighbor?
Yeah, so the closest property line is the line to the west. Based on GIS measurements, it's roughly 350 feet, so it's 50 feet beyond the requirement. The nearest dwelling, the actual dwelling, is about 700 feet, but that dwelling is I don't believe anybody's residing there. I believe it's an abandoned structure. The actual nearest adjacent dwelling that I think is actually occupied is around I think 900 linear feet.
Okay. So go to the next slide, like where you were showing the image. All right, so there's the dwelling. All right, next. Next, sorry. I don't know what slide number it is. Go again. Here. So the picture on the right,
Yes.
that is
I believe that is,
a neighbor? No.
is that the house that's,
I have a picture of that actual house in my presentation.
Okay, is that a neighbor or is it occupied?
is that the
The one
occupied?
that's in the picture right on the screen now,
Yes.
that building on the right is a garage. And the flowers to the extreme right is a house with like partially up the hill right there.
Okay, the white structure behind the garage, that's the,
That's the dilapidated home.
okay.
And then there's our neighbor's garage, and then there's flowers, and then,
Are there people there? And I see a horse trailer, it looks like.
There-
no, as far as I know, that, no one has lived there for many decades. And,
Looks like a nice garage.
The,
well, that's not on the property behind, like right behind that garage is like a fence, like a farm fence. So all the use that property.
would you like to come?
Yeah, yeah. My apologies.
This is on television, so we need to get you forward so we can hear what you're saying.
The
Thank you.
structure here?
Yeah, so nobody lives there, and on that property where that sits, they just cut hay. That's all that it's really used for currently. Someone bought it, I think, earlier this year, so I have no idea like what their plans are. But right now, the person whose garage it is has a farm there, and then also like in Floyd, so he has permission to cut hay on
And,
that back property.
okay, and your property is right on the other side of the fence, right?
Right on the other-
Right.
to the left side of
And
the fence.
you're suggesting to put your building right about, yeah, that's where I'm thinking too.
Yeah.
So then your animals in training with livestock can come all the way up to this fence? All the way up, because that's what I just heard, yes? Okay.
Yeah.
And there, we don't know really who's on the other side anymore. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions before?
I do. How many dogs? So it says 25, but that doesn't count puppies. So how many animals are we really talking?
So it'd be 25 adult dogs.
Okay.
It can be difficult to know how many puppies
You got a
an individual
business,
dog.
you got an idea what you're looking for each year.
Right.
So how many?
I'll
Defer,
defer
okay.
that question to the applicant.
Okay.
Any other questions before the applicant?
I'm sorry. So we're saying 25 adult dogs plus puppies. Is there somewhere else in our code, you talked about another section that dealt with animals? I mean, truly, can we have 100 puppies? I mean, it seems like there should be some limitation placed on the number of puppies if we have the number of adult dogs.
Chapter 3 of County Code does deal with animals. That's enforced through our animal control office. I don't know what their regulations are. I know that there are some limitations because in addition to the special use permit, he does have to get a kennel license through the animal control office. And that also limits the number of animals that they can have on site. I will say most regulations, for whatever reason, all count numbers over 6 months. So they don't count anything below the 6-month mark.
What about septic? Doesn't matter for animals?
No, they will have to have a septic system installed for the living quarters that they plan to have there.
Right.
And so all of that will get reviewed by the health department. Yes.
Okay. Okay. But just for people.
Any further questions? Thank you, Jude.
Yep.
And Mr. Cowan, as the property owner, did you want to give us any more additional information?
I'll try to be brief.
Excuse me.
So you had some questions on your mind?
Mouse works and then just any of the arrows to go to the next slide.
Okay, thank you for teeing it up for me. Of course, my name is Jason Cowan. I've been a public servant for most of my adult life, working for local governments across Virginia and North Carolina. So first, I want to say thank you for your service. I know what it's like to be a public servant. It's not always the most glamorous job. We're thankful to God that our children were able to grow up on a farm. We have 4 children. Most of the time, they've had animals as their companions. Over the years, we've raised chickens, ducks, guinea fowl, quail, sheep, pigs, bottle calves, and a whole lot of goats. We currently have chickens, dogs, sheep, and goats. By supporting our application, you will not only enhance our lives, but also that of our animals. We feel that it's incredibly important for our dogs to live in a family environment, surrounded by and cared for by other people. This is why we hope to build an expanding living area with space for our dogs. I believe my proposal is altogether reasonable. This is a copy of the state code. I think some of y'all had questions about other codes. It actually limits the maintain no more than 50 dogs over the age of 1 year, and we're asking for half of that. And I would explain to people about like why even it's that high. So again, the state code says no more than 50 on any commercial kennel, and we're doing half of that. Most of our dogs will retire on our property, and that's really the reason. We typically have between 2 and 4 litters a year and produce about 50 puppies or less at any given year. Most of them, if not all, will be sold outside of the New River Valley. It's very popular in the southeast, these dogs that we breed. So most of them go all over the country, really. Because our dogs are like family to us, we want to retire on the farm one day ourselves, and we want our dogs to also retire. So I think there's some limit. I think typically it's like 4 to 6 years after age, they can no longer really safely produce puppies because it's a health concern. So we want them to enjoy the benefit of having children and growing up with them, just like, I enjoyed having my children. And also we'd like to be able to keep them as our family pets. So that's why the number is like even that high, because we anticipate, I don't know what the record is for long life of a dog, but I hope our dogs break it, I want them to live a nice, long, happy life, surrounded by my children, my wife, my family. But also another point I wanted to make out is if anybody buys our dog and they want to return it to them, we always let them, And we put in our contract, like most recently, that it was required if they to give us like first right. And some people have gotten them in like California or something and it didn't work out, and then they brought them back, So it's not like we're going to be overrunning like local animal shelters or anything like that. We're only producing typically like 50 dogs a year. We don't sell to people around here. And we have policies that are like, I think, very accommodating to people who, if they want to bring it back, hey, we love dogs, bring them back. Here's a snip of our application, which you've already read, showing it's, 25. The closest house is, like he said, 700 feet away. The other ones are over 900 feet. That house has no value. The one we were talking about, one of the county tax rules, it has absolute zero value. Our proposal is for a breeding kennel, not a boarding or grooming kennel. So there's not going to be people coming up and down the road, dropping off dogs and picking them up, or anything like that. It's just really going to be for breeding. We prefer to meet people like off the site, like at the grocery store or Tractor Supply or someplace that's neutral. A lot of times people ask us to do that because, it's the world and you never know what you're going to show up. Occasionally people want to come and visit our dogs on the farm and see where they're grown and stuff like that. So we'll let them do that. But even for like our own safety and then keeping diseases off our property, we prefer not to meet people on site. Our property is fully fenced. A lot of it, particularly in the back, like across that creek, the brush creek at the very back, there is a fence, but it's like fallen down. So we installed at the tree line, just a little bit into the tree line, we put in new canal panels all the way across the back. And about half of our fencing is brand new. We have enough fencing on our property now to actually complete it, with brand new fencing. We just haven't had the time to put it up. So we're in the process of replacing it. We also have interior fences. There's an aerial image of the house. You can see that it's got a hole in the roof. And there's a picture of it that I took this morning, I think. So nobody lives there. It hasn't for many decades. Closest occupied home is over 900 feet away. That's about double the distance requirements. And that's why I said I think it's, overall, it's reasonable, the request, you know, because it's less than half of the state mandated, like, minimum, and almost double, you know, to an occupied home. The other surrounding houses are, I think, 1,000 or 1,200 feet or something like that. So it's like, you know, pretty far away. So potential impacts on local resources. I know that was like a concern with some of the people who have submitted stuff to you. Most of our dogs will be sold out of state. I think we have sold only a handful to people locally in the Southwest region. We always allow the people to return them to us if they want to. Here's just a little fact. The number of dogs entering shelters, this is from the ASPC website, it's actually declining. Since 2011, I think it was the height after the economic downturn. I think it's been cut in half since that time. Again, from the SPCA website, approximately 44% of homes have dogs, and I think a little bit less than that have cats. So people like dogs, and as you can see, this is a little stat of where people source their dogs. The highest bracket is from breeders. Most of it's word of mouth too. So good breeders produce good dogs. We have American Kennel Club registered dogs. We follow good breeding practices. We screen people. You know, we're not just like handing them out to anybody. I'm going to read this briefly. We're located in Pilot. This is like from our website. My daughter maintains our website. We love our dogs. They are first and foremost our family pets, sharing our home and stealing our beds. We fell in love with them. It goes on to say, we stay up with them 24 hours a day. That's why kind of like we need a place that's a living place where we can live with them and hear them cry, and because there's a whole thing where the moms can sometimes lay on the puppies, and crush the dogs, So somebody needs to be sorry, nervous. Somebody needs to be around the dogs. So we have our dogs health tested. And we make sure that they don't have any bad genetic things that could be passed on down the line. Here's another test. I think this was for hips, because we do blue healers, and sometimes they have hip problems, So here's some pictures of our dogs. And the reason I'm showing you this is because they're not in bad situations. Our dogs live very good lives, we think. They're well cared for. Like I said, they're our families. Are they walked regularly? I think you all had some questions about the property and where the dogs will be. They're walked so regularly that Google Earth, you can actually see our footpaths. There's our house right there where the dot is, and then you can see us where we come out our front door and hang a left and go around where that yellow line is up to the field. That's from our house. The path would be going up to where the kennel would be. And this is kind of the end of the interior perimeter fence. You can see where the paths are, where we walk our dogs, And then over here in the purple is where we actually drive, so you can see the differences. We screen people. We ask them all sorts of questions about whether they've had experience with dogs before, whether they're going to be left at home a lot, what kind of situation they are in as far as apartments, things like that. And oftentimes we counsel people not to get our dogs, just say, hey, maybe you should wait till later on in life or choose a different breed. It's not like we're exploiting dogs or anything. Here's what some of our clients have to say about us. There's a person says that dog loves them. They'll always want to be around them. They highly recommend us. They're praising us for helping them to understand the dog's personalities and whether they would be a good fit for the person's personality. Here's another one where it says that it's a little girl's best friend. The bottom line is we care about our dogs. We care about them while they're living with us and also where they go. We typically sell to people out of state, so it's not going to be a problem for us locally. We allow people to return their dogs. We don't expect to drain local resources. We don't pose any threat to our neighboring properties. We're not a puppy mill. We're not a large corporation. We're a family farm, which is in keeping with the surrounding properties. The building that we intend to build will be like basically just like a regular house, you know, like a garage with an apartment above it. Final thoughts, I think our application is reasonable. We're only asking for half the number of allowable dogs, and really that's only so that we can keep them and allow them to live out their life, and as they age out, we'll buy new ones. So I just ask for your support for our application. Thank you.
Mr. Cowan, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Do you sell to just private parties, or do you sell to like corporate pet stores?
No, just
Yeah.
the private parties, yeah.
Private parties, okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions for the applicant? Yes.
Mr. Cowan, I'm trying to get a handle on, and I think it goes to your question, the number of animals that are flowing through there on an annual basis. You've got 25 breeding dogs. I assume that's just the females you're counting?
No, sir. We
That's
have
both?
we have 11 dogs currently.
Yeah,
So-
but you're asking for up to 25.
Yeah, so that would be like all ages that could be used for males and females.
Males and females, okay.
I think Mr. Cochran styled it as any dog, which would include males and females
Okay.
above 6 months old, I believe.
And you've got 2 to 4 litters a year?
Well, that's typically, but that's not like a maximum thing. You
Okay,
know,
but-
we may want to expand, like when I retire, you know, like I said, I want to retire one day too. We'll see with Social Security and stuff. But yeah, we may decide to have more in the future. So,
Okay, and what's the average litter size?
it varies, you know, a lot of it's like individual genetics, but I would say like 10 would be like a high end. You know, some of them are going to have 12, but usually 8.
And how old are these dogs when they're trained enough to be sold?
We don't let them go home before 8 weeks. I think
8 weeks?
yeah, that's the most. And like, we try to get them doing something as far as using the bathroom outside. We try to expose them to our sheep and our goats. You know, usually it's a young dog with a young goat or a young sheep, you know, and things like that. And we try to, mostly it's socializing them, you know, like, so that they'll be, you know, capable to bond with their forever home or whatever.
Well, I haven't done the math, but that's a lot of puppies rolling through there on an annual basis. I mean, if you're talking about, let's say 20 at three litters a year, that's 60.
I don't know, but we've never had a dog have 3 litters a year.
Okay.
I don't think it's really safe to have more than one, really. I mean, I think they could be capable of 2, but, you know, I don't, 3 would be a real push for a dog to have 3 litters in a
If
year.
we use 20 dogs as an example and an average litter size of 10, we're
It's-
talking about 200 puppies.
Some of them could be males that would be,
Good
you know.
point, but there's still critters that are coming through there.
Yes, sir.
And then they're gonna hang around for 8 weeks or longer, so you're talking 6 cycles, 4 cycles a year.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm not gonna, like, stipulate like as far as like the maximum number of cycles, because I don't, like I said, I think it's usually a spring and a fall thing for dogs. You know, their breeding cycles, they come into heat twice a year, I think. And don't hold me to this, like, I'm a professional, like I said, I'm a public servant. My wife and daughter are the people who actually manage the dogs day to day, you know, so you're asking me some like technical questions that, but yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure 3 would be almost impossible. And most of the time, more than 1 is really pushing it. So some of them, and I know where you're getting at. You're trying to have some kind of like understanding of the, like the most,
Right.
you know, in any given year or whatever, so.
Okay, thank you.
But I also, if I heard you correctly, understand 25 is your max of 6-month or older dogs.
Yep.
It's a mix of male and female. And right now, like if you started today, you would start with 11. You're not at 25.
Yeah, and a good number of, I think we have 4 or 6, and a lot of them are older than, like, there's a cutoff limit, I want to say 5 years.
Right, so there's right, so that's what I'm trying to get to, is that
So-
your breeding dogs are not 25 dogs. Really, your breeding dog, like the number of dogs that would be breeding is 8, maybe?
Yeah, I think we'd have some number of, like I said,
'Cause you're just trying to allow yourself room for your dogs to age out and live a good life, is what you're saying, by having 25.
exactly. So say you had 5 that were aged out, and you had 2 or 3 males, because you have 2 breeds or something like that, maybe 4 of them. So you have 5 that are. I'm just hypothetical.
Right, that's
You know,
what I'm trying to get.
Yeah. So like 5 that are like the grandma dogs or whatever.
Right.
4 males.
Hanging out till
So
they
that I think that practically speaking, the most that would actually be young enough to produce, and also that like we have tested and they're approved and don't have genetic flaws and stuff, because it's not like we're just gonna like dump them. If we
Right.
get a dog that happens to have a bad hip thing, well,
Or breeding, but you're holding
yeah.
on
So
to the
I
past.
think practically speaking, under ideal circumstances, you may actually have, of the 25, like about 12 that are young enough, healthy enough, have good genes and stuff that could produce.
Okay,
Yeah,
1 to 2 litters a year, is what I hear.
right.
Okay.
And our conditions that were placed on this says 25, no more than 25 dogs. It doesn't matter, it doesn't differentiate between pets, retired dogs. It's
Correct.
Total of 25.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
So it may only be
exactly.
5 or 6 that's able to
Correct.
have puppies.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Cowan?
Mr. Cowan, what is the gestation period for dogs?
The gestation period, I think there's some veterinarian people here. I'm going to defer to them. I want to say it's 2 months. I don't know, like again, my wife and daughter are the ones who do this. I mostly just build fences and pet the dogs, run a Tractor Supply when we need to. So I want to say it's 2 months. But there's people here, I think, who are veterinarians who are going to tell you for sure.
Thank you.
You have questions? Okay, Mr. Cowan, thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your consideration.
And let's see, Jude, if you don't mind, I think we have a question for you before we open it up for public address.
Mr. Cochran, I just wanted to ask you to go back to your
Absolutely.
presentation and pull the conditions up,
Yes, that's what I was. Let's see.
and then leave them there because I have a lousy memory.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
And Jude, I have one question too, just to clarify. I'm sorry. In our code, we have 350 feet to the nearest property line, is it? And then 500 to the house?
To the nearest adjacent house.
Okay. And is that house the habitable house or the one with the old dilapidated house? Are we measuring from that one or are we measuring from a habitable house?
That's a great question. I would assume it would be the habitable house, based on building code requirements.
Okay.
That house would not be deemed livable.
Right. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you much. Okay, we'll now open the floor for a public hearing. I've got 3 people signed up. We'll call those names first, and then we'll open the floor to anybody else. So the first on the list is Rihanna Watson. If you don't mind coming forward and stating your name and address, please. And you've got 3 minutes.
Yes, my name is Rhiannon Watson. I'm a licensed veterinary technician. I've been working in the veterinary field for 30 years.
And your address?
My address is 4901 Pilot Road, Pilot, Virginia.
Yes, ma'am.
We are directly, if you bring up the map, here's their property, that entire property line fence. This is us to adjacent to it.
Okay.
53.5 acres. So I have a lot of the answers to your questions regarding gestation period, 63 to 64 days for any dog. Their application, as does the wife, say there are actually 13 dogs on the premises, as well as a fence that is in no way intact. We frequently, not that I'm complaining, I enjoy the goats and the sheep, but they're there every other day at least. In my backyard, in my front yard, everywhere. So that's not an intact fence line in any way. More speaking to, however, your laws. In the state of Virginia, a commercial breeding facility includes 30 intact female dogs between the ages of 18 months and 6 years. Not to be over than 6, not to be younger than 18 months. You have to be 8 weeks old to be sold. You have to have your first distemper vaccines. You have to keep your records for 6 years. You also have to hold a business license. Having 13 dogs, you are already required to have a kennel license in Montgomery County. That being, you have a 10, 20, 30 dog kennel license. I don't care if you're a humane society, private individual, animal control. So they should already have a 20 dog kennel license. If you have 11 or 13 dogs, depending on who you're speaking with, you should already have a 10 dog to 20 dog kennel license. I'm not sure if that exists. You also have to prove rabies vaccines, kennel tags. I see the testing that's been done various places. I don't know of any local veterinary clinics that do pin hip testing. Not even Virginia Tech, to my knowledge. We've been asked to. The unfortunate severity of this is we live right here. I see his wife very frequently. She's a lovely lady. As some of their children gathering goats and things. We had 2 little bottle-fed goats the other day, hanging out with our ducks, kind of herding them back up. Our pit bull herds them up. I'm not sure if they're herding dogs or herding them up towards the house. But anyway, it's a lovely family. This already exists. Obviously, they have a commercial website where they sell their puppies. Dogs have to be legally 18 months to breed. Within 6 months, they can have 2, generally speaking, 2 litters a year. His wife tells me they have 2 breeding sets. I know just from their website, they had 10 puppies sold of their blue healers at $1,500 to $2,000
Can you wrap it up? I
a
think
piece.
your 3 minutes is up.
I apologize.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. The next is Matthew Watson, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Dr. Matthew Watson. I live at 4901 Pilot Road, Pilot, Virginia. Well, wife's Rihanna, who just spoke. The main issue that I see with this proposal is one of not only a sound issue, right? But also I particularly have a moral issue with it, which is my own personal issue really, is that we have many dogs that are in our shelter right now that need good homes, right? And we are going to be setting up a commercial facility which is going to be then making more dogs that need homes. Now, the commercial facility has to take care of its bottom line in order for it to be profitable. If the bottom line comes down to trying to make sure that we are vaccinating correctly, trying to make sure that we're keeping the dogs in an appropriate manner, and that is going possibly infringe on the bottom line if we have to go to vet clinics. And at some point in time, that may become an issue where certain things will be missed, and we will have dogs ending up in a situation where they will not be getting the type of treatment that they will need, they'll not be getting the type of vaccines that we need, physical exams. So that is what we have seen in other dog facilities or breeding facilities, commercial breeding facilities to be specific. So that is what I take an objection to, is that we have these dogs that might end up being at risk, as well as the fact we have many dogs that need a home. That, yes, people love dogs, and there are many dogs that need to be loved. The other issue that I have is the issue of sound. Dogs like to bark. They definitely like to bark at night. Yes, tractors make quite a bit of noise and usually operating during the daytime, but they're not talking to other tractors in the middle of the night. Dogs do. And if we're going to be having a breeding facility that also has an outdoor kennel or dogs that are training, we could end up having what would normally be a 6-dog chat back and forth in the middle of the night, having a backup course of possibly 30 to 25 dogs, all barking, which is not something many people want to be dealing with. Those are my two main objections to the proposal. So that's all I have to say on the matter. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Thanks, sir. Next on the list is Eric Smith. Okay. So that's all the people that were signed up on the list, but we'll still open the floor to anyone else that would like to speak to this conditional use permit or special use permit. Please come forward, state your name and address, please.
My name is Rebecca Meredith, and I live on at 4708 Brush Creek Road, and in Reiner. That's the property is in sight from my front porch to where I can see what's going to be going on with this commercial building, and I don't want to see a commercial building in my line of sight. And I don't want to hear the sounds. I'm from Northern Virginia. I've lived in the house 12 years. I bought it for the purpose of being able to see the trees, and I know I have no control per se, but I don't want to hear it. I'm out at night on my porch every night, and I don't want to hear it, and I wish my neighbors the best. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Would anyone else like to come forward? Okay, so I'll close the public address portion of this public hearing and move to action by the commission. Comments, questions?
Yeah, Chairman, I was wondering if you would indulge me and let me ask the applicant another question.
Okay. Mr. Cowan, can you step forward?
Mr. Cowan, would you mind clarifying the outdoor, when the dogs will be outdoors versus in the actual kennel? It wasn't clear to me from the concept sketch of the building. It shows some runs associated with the new building, but it's not clear if those are actually within the structure or those are going to be outside kennel runs.
Yes, sir.
And also, just in general, are you going to have 10 or 12 dogs outside at night that are potentially going to be running around the entire 50 acres? Or will they be housed inside at night during normal operations?
Sure, that's no problem. So here it is. Thank you for whoever did that. So the main structure is like 30 by 30 on the lower level. We anticipate that's where most of the dogs will sleep. Now they will have like doggy doors in and out to access the fence run if they have to use the restroom or something like that at night, So I guess they could just meander out if they wanted. Or we could just, most of the adult ones won't have to go to the bathroom, or we could just lock it, So I think most of the time, right now, when we walk them, they're on supervised walks. You know, my daughter, or I have two daughters, or my son will walk them. Usually it's my oldest daughter will walk them. So most of the time they're going to be supervised, you know. Occasionally we do let them just kind of run around and chase the sheep, and we train them and stuff like that. And then, you know, it's a working farm, so that'd be the same thing as somebody, you know, right across the street. There's sheep that on a farm almost like a kind of across the street from Pilot Mountain Grocery. There's up on a hill, they have sheep, you know, and they have dogs and stuff. So any other farming, we're not going to be dissimilar from any other farming operation that has dogs who would run around and stuff like that. And sometimes they will be out at night and barking because there's predation. You know, there's bears and sheep and, you know, I mean, wolves and stuff like that. So it's necessity that they bark to keep the, you know, animals at bay or whatever. So, and again, that's just like, you know, but the breeds that we have currently are not like designed to necessarily guardian them, you know. They will work them and shepherd them and herd them. There are ones that are specifically designed that we don't have any, but it's like I'd like to have a couple Commodores or whatever types of dogs, and they are ones that stay out with the sheep pretty much 24/7, and they kind of watch over them or whatever. So I think those dogs may be outside. Wherever the sheep are on the property, they'd be with them. Our dogs, most of the time, they're going to be inside at night, and then outside, they'll probably have free run, you know, to go in and out as they choose or please, and then we'll let them out and walk them, you know.
Mr. Cowan, did that answer your question? I mean, Mr. Kroll, did that
Well,
answer your question?
not really. I guess I'm still, your sketch is a little confusing to me. So the actual structure is 30 by 30?
Yes, sir.
And then the area outside the 30 by 30 is fenced outdoor space?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that structure would in and out.
To go to the, like, yeah, if they wanted to escape the sun but be outside, they'd have that little, like, 10 by 30 porch on the back, and then they'd have a fence run.
Somebody's living right.
So, yes, that's our goal. That's the whole reason, you know. And I think they probably, when we have puppies, they'd probably be living downstairs, you know, where the dogs are, you know.
Any further questions from Mr. Cowan? Yes, ma'am.
If I understand correctly, you currently have 11 to 13 dogs. Do you get complaints from your neighbors right now?
No, I asked Mr. Cochran, and he told me to his knowledge he'd never had a complaint about our dogs.
And you'll have the same type of dogs, just more of them, or different dogs?
Basically, the same type. I do want to have livestock guardian dogs as well, so I'm not going to like sit here and tell you no. There are ones that there's like, they're usually just big white dogs that they look like a sheep. They sometimes even think they are a sheep because they bond with the sheep. And the people who like sell those dogs, they say like, you can be friendly with a dog, of course, but you don't want them to like bond to you because they're going to guard you. The reason you have those dogs is to protect the sheep, you know, and that's just like an agricultural thing. You know, just if you have sheep, it's usually a good idea to have a livestock guardian dog. Because
Any
there's
further questions, Ms. Simpkins?
And one more question. On your fencing, you have attempted to make the fencing where your animals stay inside. And I've heard complaints that that's not the case. It's not very good fencing. So what's your plan on improving that? Like I know you mentioned
we were
panels.
out there this past Sunday putting up fences, and we actually put up a new fence along our driveway. And like, so there, our neighbors, they've had like 2 of their goats. Once we moved there and like, and this is not a complaint. I have no qualms with them at all. You know, I'll shake their hands if they choose to. But like, we moved here in I want to say, as soon as like the COVID hit, 2020, right? And as soon as their goats figured out that we had goats, they were on our property every day. And they're the type that can just like stand still and jump the fence, you know? So we had no problem. Like, hey, more the merrier, right? We have goats. We have no qualms. But their goats actually will stand on the fence and like bend it down and stuff. So, you know, we talked about previously, like the stretch that we're touches, maybe we'll both get together because I think they want to have sheep too and goats and stuff. Maybe we'll get together and fence it, and it just never happened. So I've, on my own, fenced almost all of it. It's patched up. There's still parts where their goats bend it down. And then very close to the front of the property, that fence is really bad. So that's the only place that I know of. And the fence we put up this past weekend eliminates the goats from going over there. That, at least through that way, yeah. So like we have like a whole pack of cattle panels, like 50 or whatever, sitting on the ground outside of my house and just waiting to go put them up. So maybe we'll have
Next question, do you have coyotes in your area?
I'm sorry?
Are there coyotes in your area?
Oh, yeah.
So they're all talking out there at night, the coyotes and the dogs are all out there talking?
The
barking?
coyotes are there. We've had, I don't know what kind of animal, like, well, we've had a sheep, like, we found the carcass in a tree. So some kind of animal, like, eats them and leaves them up in a tree to come back for later. I don't know what animal does that, but it's kind of
I just share
weird.
that, I asked that because I have that experience in where I live now, and I can go out and sit on my front porch and hear the dogs bark to the other neighbors' dogs, and coyotes usually are the ones that start it all, so I have no more comments.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cowan. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, before he leaves.
Yeah, I have another question too.
Oh, I'm sorry. We have another question. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Cowan, would you tell me your total acreage, please?
It's just under 50 acres, 49 and change, sir.
Thank you.
And I have one question. How long do you expect before you would, if I say max out? Like right now you have 10 or 11 dogs. What is your timeline before you would get to your 25?
We don't really have, like, I want to have a couple of like livestock guardian dogs, but we don't have any like intention of like just maxing out like as soon as it's built, you know, because like I'm busy, we have a family business thing, and so we really can't have more than a couple just litters a year, 2 to 4 litters a year, because we stay up all night, in 3 shifts. Somebody's like 8 hours, 24 hours a day.
So you're not going to run out tomorrow, throw this up, and then go get 12 more dogs?
Yeah, I'm not going to go on a buying. I think I'll probably fix my fence before I go on a buying spree.
Okay.
I think we have one more.
Thank you.
We have one more
Cowan.
question. Mr. Cowan, one more question.
What is your anticipated schedule for the construction of this structure?
Well, I don't know how long this will take, and then, but we have the money set aside, so I think it'll go quickly, and I'd like to have it, because I came here, I worked for the county, I was the county assessor. I moved here, and I've been thinking about doing this, like, we moved from a county that doesn't have zoning at all. There's like 4 counties that have no zoning in Virginia. So we moved from there. So I've been thinking about doing this for a few years, and we've been saving up, and we finally decided to see if we can get it approved or whatever. So we have the money, and I think maybe by next spring. I don't know the timeline.
Okay, thank you. Sure. Any discussion? It seemed like we had several comments, letters written in and so forth, that strays away from the land use portion that we're supposed to be considering. Talking about the moral implications and so forth, that's outside of our purview. So we're looking at light pollution, noise pollution, traffic, distance to property lines and so forth. And it seemed like for all the qualifications that we have in our ordinances it just seemed like that they've met all of those requirements and exceeded them quite a bit. The barking, I don't know. It's double the distance to the nearest neighbor, so that's good. And it appears it's on a higher elevation, and the sound kind of goes up and out. Being on a higher elevation than your neighbor would be helpful, but until they start barking, I don't know if the neighbors could hear it.
I would agree with the chairman. If we stay in our lane, it's one decision, and some of the other issues, I think, are Board of Supervisor issues more than us. It's a tough call, but it's still we're talking about land use. And I kind of come back to that at the end of the day.
Any other comments, questions? I think the location of the proposed dwelling unit and kennel looks like it's right in the middle of their property, and being a 50-acre property, seemed like it'd be a lot easier decision for us as opposed to a 5-acre property when we're using a tape measure to measure exactly 350 feet, you know. It's slaughterhouse, right? So,
Mr. Chair, I will move that we approve the request with staff recommendations.
with the commission, with the conditions as written,
Yes.
the 7 conditions. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second for approval of the special use permit with the conditions, 7 conditions. Is there any other comments or discussion? Mr. Linkers, if you'll poll the commission?
Sir. Mr. Kroll,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Sharp Robinson,
Yes.
Ms. Simpkins,
Yes.
Mr. Workman,
Yes.
Linkus, yes. Mr. Foster,
Yes,
Chair Rice.
Yes. So that'll go for the Board of Supervisors. Do we have a date?
We do. I'm looking at Jude for the date that it goes to the board. October 15th, this will be held before the Board of Supervisors for a public hearing. So once again, the members of the public will be invited to speak. All correspondence that has been received to date will be forwarded to the Board of Supervisors automatically. If you would like to submit new written comments, you may do that, and that will be forwarded to the board as well.
So we've had 2 public hearings. We also have a public address portion of our meeting. If anybody would like to approach the commission about something other than the 2 previous public hearings, we'd be glad to listen to you. And seeing none, we will move to old business, which we have none. And no items of new business either, so we'll move into liaison reports. And Mr. Todd King would be glad to hear from you. Yes, sir? Speaking on behalf of the Board of Supervisors and the Public Service Authority.
I don't have much. At our last meeting, we approved the coffee shop in Reiner and the Price's Fork project. And on the PSA, we finished up the Meadow Creek water project. So now on that project, all we're doing, we have 4 or 5 different people that wants to hook up now that we do have water out there. But that's about all I have now.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
you much. And the Blacksburg Plan Commission with Ms. Sharp Robinson?
I don't have the last meeting, but the one before I do. They're working on rezoning information for Turner Street, Price's Fork Road, and there's an intersection somewhere else. But it's the heights of the buildings. They're discussing the heights of the buildings. And they showed our video for the county requesting participation and reminded Blacksburg citizens that they are part of Montgomery County as well, and they need to support the county. So that was nice. So that's it.
Thank you. And the Chrisburg Planning Commission, let's see, I believe they met Monday, and they've got a request for 160 apartments on Moose Drive, and then a request to rezone and a conditional use permit for 90 townhouses in Sherwood Forest. That's somewhere around 250 units total. And I'll just mention again that it's townhouses and apartments, no single-family houses. And I'm sort of concerned about that as we move forward. We're not getting any single-family houses, nowhere to have a dog to play in the backyard or kids to play and that kind of thing. It seems like we're kind of overloaded with apartments and townhouses. And I also, I may mention, while I've got the floor, an article in today's paper kind of struck me, talking about, of course, the article is about fewer students in the public schools, but it also mentioned that according to the Weldon Cooper, that we've increased in population in Montgomery County 0.6% in the last 3 or 4 years. So it's only 571 people. I've always had the impression that we're growing faster than that. Maybe if y'all agree, maybe we should get Mr. Byrd to come in and talk to us about population levels. You know, because I'm thinking back, you know, we approved close to 1,000 houses or units on Prices Fork. 1,000 units, but this is saying we've only had 600 people move here in the last 3 years. I'm wondering, when people tell us that we've got a shortage of homes, is that correct? You know, I think this is Montgomery County. It says a total of 102,000 people. That's including Blacksburg and Christiansburg, isn't it? Yes.
Yes.
I don't know if these numbers are way off. I mean, we know sometimes the paper gets things about half right. But yeah, I was kind of concerned if we've only grown 600 people in 3 years. But anyway, I will maybe ask Bree if she can look into that, see if it's appropriate for Mr. Byrd to come talk to us, Kevin Byrd.
Yes, and it actually will lead into a discussion we're going to have under my planning director report.
Oh, okay,
So,
okay.
yes.
Sound good, thank you. So the next report will be Radford. Yes, sir.
It would appear to me that those 600 and however many people are all on the Mud Pike. And it intersects with Moose Drive. And the traffic light there seems to be uncontrollable. You can wait for 5 or 10 minutes before it'll change. Just an observation.
Yeah, I think that traffic light needs to be looked into. There's just, it's messed up. It's messed up.
Ms. Hopkins, is in the new comprehensive plan, is there going to be a new statistical metropolitan area for the Mud Pike? Are we adding that to the list of villages?
We are still developing a plan.
Okay, just checking.
The next report will be from the Radford Planning Commission. Ms. Simpkins?
Yeah, the Radford Planning met on 7/15, and they talked about their zoning ordinance for parking. They're working on updating that. And then they met Monday. I didn't get to attend that meeting, but on their agenda, they had a presenter from the New River Valley Regional Commission also speak to them about their zoning ordinance. So I'll get the minutes from that meeting and see what they talked about at that one.
Thank you. And Tourism Council with Mr. Miller?
We haven't met recently. We've been in the paper a good bit. But we have a meeting coming up, and I can hardly wait.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Workman with the Parks and Recreation?
We met on September the 12th, so last Thursday. It was a busy year at the Frog Pond. I think Mitchell and his crew are busy doing a lot of repairs right now, continuing to get ready for the Reiner Park. I think that's progressing well, and working on some Huckleberry Bridge improvements. So always busy in Parks and Rec.
Thank you. And then Planning Director's Report, Ms. Hopkins.
So I have a few things for you this evening. I will start with a miniature comprehensive plan update. Our goal was to get 1,000 surveys, and we came in at 1,009. So I will tell you, the day before it was supposed to close, we were at 999. You can't make this up. But luckily, we remembered that we did have a box at Animal Care and Adoption Center, so we had a couple of surveys in there. And then, as part of my update, we participated on the 4th of September with the Citizens Academy. So many of you may have noticed there were lots of cars here this evening. It's because the Citizens Academy was going on next door at the Multipurpose Room 2. And the first night was kickoff night. It was Government 101. And Justin and myself conducted some planning exercises with the Academy. We actually developed our own little game and had them design their town, but we gave them a few obstacles to work around, and then we told them about some things that we have to think about that they may not have realized we have to put into thought when we're planning things. So it was very successful. That academy has grown over the years, and the Public Information Office has done a wonderful job with it. It is in coordination with the town of Christiansburg. So their Public Information Office is working with ours, and they have really moved it into something that's greater than what it was. So we were excited to participate in that. That is one of the events we participated in regards to the comp plan. As you know, we have traveled to many events over the summer. Unfortunately, my whole thing when we started doing this was I have got to have the Tomato Festival this year because I have never been, and this is a good excuse to go. And lo and behold, I jinxed us all, and the Tomato Festival was canceled, so I still haven't been. But I'll get there next year, one way or another. We submitted smart scale applications the end of July, and we should have results in January. There are several things that Justin or myself had to confirm, and so that those confirmations have been made, and they are officially in, done. Now we just wait to see what our results are. I have re-advertised our Planner 2 position for Transportation Planner. We did conduct a series of interviews, but were unable to secure anyone, and so we have went back out for advertising and are hopeful. Laura Rogers started with us in August as our zoning compliance officer. She came to us from the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office. She was a school resource officer there, and she has been here maybe 3 weeks, and she is already doing amazing things. We have notices going out left and right, and we've got people cleaning up properties, and so we are very excited to have her on board. Now, to come to my next point, in October, we do not have anything to bring before you for public hearing. So this is either an opportunity to, I'm not sure if we could get Kevin Bird because they do have the regional commission meeting coming up, but to get Kevin Bird or possibly someone else to come in and talk to you about some of the training topics. If that is something you all would like to do, I would like for you all to tell me which topics you would like to hear about. We can do that. We can also give you a comprehensive plan, more thorough update, because we should have some of our survey data in by that time. So we can do all of those things under a work session. Or the other option is we cancel the meeting, but I do believe you will have some public hearings in November. Training topics, yes. So we can, I know in the past you all have discussed maybe having someone to come speak about transportation, water and sewer, stormwater, environmental services type things. I could look and see what we can arrange.
I would really like to have some more information on the population growth and data, but just because we've talked so much about the need for housing and housing shortages but then when we see that we've only grown 0.6% over 3 years, that's concerning to me. And so I'd like some more clarification on that, but I don't know if that's a whole meeting worth. You know, maybe it is. I don't know. But
I would be interested in hearing some of the PSA's plans. with all due respects to the Board of Supervisors representative, maybe somebody that knows where they're going and when and that sort of thing, which I don't think you really want to do. You might want to delegate that to someone else. But, you know, a lot of our growth has got to follow that bone structure of the PSA.
Correct.
Just one comment. This seems overly simplistic, but I realized in conversations over the past year or two, great numbers of people say, I live in the town of whatever. And if I lived in Montgomery County, and I thought, you know, have you examined your tax tickets? Somehow we're not getting across to people in multiple places probably that we're all part of one county. And as we observe our 250th anniversary next year, maybe we need to find a way of, I don't know what it would be, maybe a civics lecture. Just an observation.
So I am hearing you all would possibly still like to meet in October, if I can get someone on the agenda for some type of topic. We'll aim for water and sewer, and maybe some population numbers, and then we can do a comprehensive plan update.
Yep.
We can give you more of an update like we prepared for our steering committee.
Okay.
Internet.
A broadband update. I can definitely work on that.
Can you also provide information on, in the last year, how many units we approved, housing units we approved in the county and then both towns too? Because I agree with Mr. Rice about the volume that we've approved and the population that we're trying to serve. That seems not to be matching up.
I can definitely get you the number of units in the county. I will reach out to the towns and see what I can get from them.
It seems like we need to talk. So,
Yes.
yeah. Okay.
Yes.
And some of the numbers are kind of confusing because sometimes single family can still mean townhouses. And I'd like single family detached, you know, with a separate yard is what I'm.
Right. And we, so in our permitting, we do recognize those. We call them single-family attached versus single-family detached. I do not know how the towns do that, but I can definitely reach out and ask.
Ms. Hopkins, while time is weighing heavy on your hands, there's, to me, the approval process and then the construction process.
Correct.
So we may have approved 1.5 million units, but only 3 of them have been built
True.
and occupied. Thank you.
Okay, so we will plan to meet October 9th.
Thank you. Anything else for the commission? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. At the second?
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.